Get inspired, get motivated with M.A.Y.A and the M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition podcast.
Something that I take pride in is trying to be forward thinking, thinking outside the box, challenging myself. And as I challenge myself, hopefully I challenge you.
Find M.A.Y.A on Twitter and Instagram at M.A.Y.A_Akai. On Facebook at M.A.Y.A Akai Presents.
We're going to talk health, wealth, fitness, mental health, financial, lots of different things that can empower you as you seek out the ambition that you're pursuing.
Or get everything M.A.Y.A at M.A.YAAkai.com.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to episode 64 of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. This has been a long time coming for me. I've been anticipating this moment because it's been so long that I wanted to get back to podcasting. So I never do consistency because if you do know, I am working on my doctorate, my PhD, and the last year and a half, 2 years have been just immersed in doing that. And I had to make a choice of things I had to give up to make it work. And obviously things have settled in and I can get back to things I love. So it has been highly anticipated for me to come back, maybe not for you, but I've missed you all the same because there's so much in my absence that I've been working on that I want to bring back to the stage and to share with you. This episode today, definitely without question, has a lot to offer because what I do is take the thing that, I am a licensed clinical professional counselor as well as a certified alcohol and drug counselor. And working in therapy with people, I really learn so much about the dynamics of what makes people tick that I can also look at myself. And I said, some things that we may assume are so common sense are not. And I know a lot of people are very apprehensive to go to therapy because they always assume it's something you go do when you think it's something wrong. I would encourage you to retool your thinking. It's something you should do before there is something wrong. So maybe those little small things in your life you can't figure out, you can go and talk to somebody in your safe space. And you don't have to worry about being judged, not being accepted, and what you're saying isn't inappropriate. Because guess what? We often want to do that with family and friends, and it tends to backfire. Why not go get that person who can be your person to help you figure things out? And it doesn't have to be a catastrophe. It could be something very simple that you've been haggling with. By the way, when you talk about managing your mental wellness, there are different people who can help you with that. Maybe you don't need a therapist. Maybe you could use a life coach. For that moment in your life, you're struggling to figure something out, where someone can come in and help you to learn how to be objective, because maybe you've been too subjective in your life and could not figure things out. Well, if you join me when I'm here, I'm not going to commit to every week. I'm going to commit right now in June to every other week. And by the time I get to July, I think I'll have my wheels spinning and give it every week. But the key thing is, my theory about how you manage your life is this. I call it the 3 dimensions that you have to understand about your mental health. You have mental wellness, and I always say to people, this is where you sit in your life, where you legitimately have balance. It doesn't mean perfection, it means balance. Things at home is good, maybe things at work might be difficult, but you've figured how to strike that balance, and you've definitely how the importance of self-care, and you've worked that in the mix. Mental wellness is not about perfection. It's about striking balance, which is about being mindful. It's about honestly being accountable and accepting of yourself and having compassion. And when you can do those things, you can strike a balance. Even when the storm rolls in and wants to take over, you can step back and you can have better perspective of things because you've taken the time to honestly get to know where you sit emotionally and mentally with things. So it's about balance with mental wellness. I always tell people when they fail to acknowledge the fact that their mental health is paramount, and can I just say this? The fact that people have an issue with therapy or even maintaining their mental health kind of blows my mind, because this is the engine that runs everything in your life. Every decision that you make, every behavior, feeling, it all generates from up here. And when this is not in sync, the rest of your life tends to fall apart. Hence, I say you lose that balance and you go from mental wellness and you fall into what by mental health issues. You're struggling. The balance is out of sync. And sometimes getting it back isn't easy and you got to do some work. But you've acknowledged that something isn't right and you're working on it. And you eventually can get that balance back. When people totally decide to avoid that they are struggling with something mentally and emotionally, eventually that could fall into dire straits, which I then call mental illness. where you might then be struggling more so. Not the same with mental health issues. You may not have some anxiety, depression that you kind of are battling through. When you get to mental illness, it means something has gone so unchecked. Now it is wreaking havoc on your life. And whether you want to seek help or not, at some point it's going to happen. If people just start to acknowledge your mental health is no different than any other health that you manage. You don't fall apart, and don't decide not to want to address, if you have diabetes or hypertension, you'll go to the doctor, you'll take medication to get the balance. People may have an issue with depression and anxiety, and it doesn't always mean you need medication. Maybe you just need to talk it out with somebody. People get reluctant. For some reason, there's such a stigma about mental health that has to change for people to find balance in their life. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. So that's what M.A.Y.A, my ambition and your ambition, is all about. It's about having those conversations that are often difficult to have. It's about acknowledging and accepting and accountability to get to the life that not that you just dream of. It's about understanding how to take that dream and make it into reality, because it requires some work. That right there is where it gets most people. I tell people when they come to therapy with me, welcome to therapy. I give them my little housekeeping spiel. Two things are clear here. One, you are in the driver's seat. I am merely a tool. Don't come here to do work and to get uncomfortable. We're probably not going to be able to get you where you need to be. This isn't about sugarcoating. This is about keeping it real, keeping it 100, seriously, and doing the work, because this is the space where you can do it, because it's your protected space. It's interesting that people come to therapy and they're going to be given answers. No, we're in a quest. The answers usually are within you. It's about you activating that part of yourself to accept it. So that's what M.A.Y.A is all about. So we carve out an hour of time. And what I say to people is, you know what, whether you're watching me live or you're in the replay, however you're watching the show, it's fine. The thing is, I would tell you, get, a notebook if you decide you want to go on this journey with me, that you can jot down things. And if I say something really makes you go, thank you, though, you can reflect on it. And I do have a mail bag. So if you go to my website, you can click and you can actually send an email a question to me. And then I actually, after I get a certain amount of questions, I'll do a mailbag show and say, here's some of the things that people have said about an episode, and they have a question. Because someone else might have the same question that you have. So I always say, write down something if it really sticks with you so you can reflect on it. If you're here, whether it's live or play, you've carved out this hour of time for you to start doing some work. So even though if you're maybe not seeing someone in therapy, the fact that you're willing to be present with me and have this for you is the beginning of your journey of self. And that's what a lot of people often don't realize, is that self-care manifested in so many ways. So before we jump fully into the language of success, which most people don't understand, and I do find that in therapy, that there's a lot of things that people assume they get. Either they get it, but they don't know how to apply it. We're going to talk about that language, what it means, but how to make it go from just words into action. But before we do that, I first have to say, it would not be right. We have to acknowledge the fact that June, believe it or not, and most people don't know this, is Men's Health Month. Every time there's a month dedicated especially to health, it's about awareness, prevention, and education. With this being saying, fellas, you're often the ones that run from therapy. You think you got to be all strong, that machismo. Hey, by the way, I have some guys in therapy, and they have told me how much they value and how much they've learned, that they can be vulnerable. They've learned how to communicate. They've learned how to improve themselves. And when you improve you, when you are the best version of you, every other part of your life will benefit from it. You will do better at work. You will be better in your relationships. But people don't understand the answers don't come from the outside. They are within. No one completes you. They only complement you. So men, I say this because mental health is part of health. And a lot of men will avoid things, and they should not. But on a bigger scale, the whole month is yours. But from a global standpoint, it is absolutely acknowledged. Next week, which will go from the 10th all the way through next week, is actually International Men's Health Week. So globally, men are being celebrated beyond Father's Day, and happy Father's Day, in advance. But globally, men are being acknowledged and they're being elevated. And we're saying, hey, fellas, we need you to take care of yourself physically and mentally, because we want you to have long and prosperous lives. So I wanted to give my fellas their just due. So for instance, guys, if you haven't been to the doctor, how about we make those appointments and get checked up? We get to a certain age where our health is really important. And if you're like me, you probably have noticed we've lost a lot of people recently under the age of 55 to health issues. that, to be honest, if they just had stayed on top of their health, they could have maybe had longer lives. Fellas, take care of yourself. You're worth it. So I will say I will do at least one show to focus fully on men's mental health, because men think they're, not just about being afraid to express yourself or show emotion. Men have their own version of menopause. It's called andropause. And they go through a lot of changes. When I've had the conversation with most men, they're like, I have never heard of this. And that does explain some things. And then we put a plan in place of how to actually do the medical check side of it. So I will do a show that will be all about the fellas and things that you should be paying attention to as you age gracefully. All right. With that being said, let's actually jump into what this is all about. Episode 64, the language of success. Now, understanding the elements that build success is a very intricate and intimate relationship. It's an experience that is a daily thing you participate in, not occasionally. One of the reasons most people are not successful in things, be therapy, a goal they set, is because they lack consistency, which also requires discipline. Change requires daily attentiveness if you want it to happen. It can't be sometimes. So, in this episode, we're going to discuss the importance of understanding the language of success by putting a spotlight on speaking to what you want to say, put it into existence. We're going to see, how do you make success happen? Because it doesn't just, happen by accident. It does require that we do put some work into it. So we will do that. We're going to break it down piece by piece. But first, fundamentally, we're going to talk about those building blocks, the language, the words you frequently hear about success. I want you to understand what those words mean, but then how to take those words and make them into action and distinguish and understand about them, how to apply them to yourself in specific situations. If you feel like you're not being successful, well, what's missing? What are you not doing? The words are not enough if you don't understand and how to put them into action. So that is what episode 64 will be about. Now, remember, you can always, come back and listen to this episode. You can find episodes of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. You can always go to my website. I say everything M.A.Y.A is at M.A.YA-speaks.com. It's the easiest way to capture information. I have a daily inspiration page there where I put things up to make you reflect, some simple, deep thinking. I also have a blog that is dedicated to menopause, Me on Pause. So if you want to learn more about menopause, ladies, you should definitely check into my website, go to the Me on Pause blog. Fellas, I'm going to tell you something too. Why not educate yourself about maybe what that woman in your life is going through if she happens to be in that window of being 40 and up? Why not learn some of the challenges of this? Because it's such a big word that a lot of people don't know anything about. So though the blog is geared towards women, I would encourage men, if you want to know why your wife might seem a little bit more irritable or why, she doesn't seem like she really wants to be intimate with you. There's a lot behind that. So that blog can bring a lot of things to the table. So definitely check that out. You can always find episodes of this on YouTube. You just go to YouTube and search M.A.Y.A Speaks to You. And all my former podcasts, there's actually 74 episodes, but they weren't always based in M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. But this is 64 within that particular top platform that I have. So you can always go to YouTube if you happen to be a YouTube person and just search M.A.Y.A Speaks to You. It will come up there, and you can then catch all previous episodes there as well. My website also, landing point for podcast. You can find how you can watch. Actually on every single podcast platform that exists. You can find me in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audibles, Spotify. So all you have to do is put in M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, and voila, there's all my former podcasts. So it's all out there. All you have to do, if you want to go dive back into some of those other conversations I have, which I would say are equally as salient, go check it out at M.A.YA-speaks.com, or just go to your favorite podcast platform and go listen to some of the past episodes. But I will tell you, always go pencil, pen, notepad. Take some notes because you'll get a lot of information from that. It's interesting. I always know that this is not a conversation for people that's interesting. It's not. I'll be honest. There's nothing really sexy about mental health. Mental health only becomes paramount to people when it falls apart. And that's exactly what the problem is. I'm trying to get people to rethink their attitude about their mental wellness so that you can understand how to weather the storm and what shelter looks like if you've taken the time to manage it. But it doesn't get interesting until it gets messy. which might be part of human nature and that might be part of the problem. But let's get into understanding the language of success. Of course, this episode kind of lends itself to why my podcast is called M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, because ambition is a very powerful thing. What is ambition? Because most people don't truly understand it, which is interesting because they use so many words that get thrown around and they think they get it. But it's always interesting. Ambition is the seed that needs to be planted. If I had to give you a Webster's dictionary, type of definition for it, here it is. It's pretty straightforward. Ambition is a strong desire to do or to achieve something, typically requiring determination and hard work. But ambition is that, like, on steroids. It's more than just determination and hard work. It's about putting the consistency behind it and the discipline behind it. It pushes hard. It's something you aim high for. It has many things that builds it up. But people need ambition to be able really to push through things. And this is why it's so important to understand what it is. I mean, what comes to your mind? I always to say something like, she is really ambitious. She being whoever you want to be. By the way, congratulations to Coco Gauff, who just won the French Open. The last American was Serena Williams in 2015. So I would say Coco Gauff is very ambitious. Starting playing tennis as a kid, now having 2 majors under her belt, she is ambitious. So if I say that, what comes to mind? How would you describe that person? You'd say hardworking, determined, consistent. They apply, they never give up. They are just usually doing more than a little. They might be the person you say is doing most. And that's the part about ambition. It's bigger. Ambition is the thing that will separate somebody out from the pack. It's a person who's ahead, who's always finding a way to do something different or to achieve what their goals are. They're always ahead of the pack. That is ambition. And it's important to understand that because you will hear other words that you may think could be synonymous with it, and it's not. Something else, when we talk about, ambition, we get it, it's powerful, it does a lot. It is that relentless pursuit. And I put the definition up there because I feel like you got to see it. It's about tenacity, drive, aspiration, determination. Those are words that put a person ahead of the pack because they're always pushing to do more. It's that person you see in those commercials when they're promoting an athlete or a sport that's in that gym at 5 a.m. working on how they can get better, how they can improve their weakness, how they can take their game to the next level. That's ambition. How can you take your game, whatever that game is, to the next level? It's grind. But people just don't get ambition as the thing that will separate you all from everyone else. And I think some people can know, I'm probably not as ambitious as so-and-so. I mean, I'm motivated, but I'm not ambitious. That's the difference. And when you understand ambition separates you out, then you can figure out, well, how do I get there? Well, there's a lot of things that lead you to ambition. And one of those key things that will lead you to ambition is willpower. And it's always loading. That's the thing that is so interesting. It's always loading. And people often don't know that. They don't know that willpower, in essence, is, I would tell you, it is the strong desire to do or achieve something, but not in the way that ambition is. So if I had to give you that Webster's dictionary type, definition of ambition, it's the ability to delay gratification, short-term temptations, and achieve long-term goals. Willpower, if I had to give you a definition of it, it's level 1 that will lead you to motivation, which eventually could lead you to ambition. It's the boost to do things when you're struggling. It can get you to be productive. Example, plenty of people wake up some mornings and be like, I don't feel like going to work. But guess what you do? You get up and you go to work. Willpower be the thing you don't want to go work out. But you're like, I got to do this. And you find a way and you push through it. It gives you just enough of that energy to be able to do the things that you need to do. So if you think about it, how willpower works, it gives you the capacity. Remember, this is loading. So sometimes your mental and emotional capacity can be high, and sometimes it can be low. It just depends. So once you gauge what your capacity is, it gives you the ability to tap in and to override the thoughts and feelings and impulses that make you not want to move forward. So you have to have that internal dialogue. And yes, internal dialogue, self-talk is really important to say, don't want to get out. You don't want to get out of bed, but we need to get out of bed because we're not going to achieve this goal if we don't. This is part of our plan. By the way, goal planning is going to come a little later in the podcast. But willpower is just the thing that can help you to get up and do what you need to do. It often seems like it could be very interchangeable. You often hear people use terms like determination and drive and resolve and self-discipline and self-control. I will say this, you do need a certain amount of self-control and self-discipline to be able to tap into your willpower. Because when you are weak, whatever amount of willpower you have is the thing you're trying to pull you to pull it out to get things done. So willpower, it's level 1. What gets you to level 2? The word that you hear people talk about the most is motivation. We know if you're on empty, you're working really more on the willpower. You're trying to get yourself up to half a tank. Because motivation usually gets you half tank to full. So if we have to talk about motivation again, if I have to give you a working definition of what that means, pretty simple. It's the driving force behind our actions. It's the internal, external factors that initiate, direct, and sustain our behavior towards specific goals. That's motivation. Willpower, you do just enough of maybe the self-control and discipline to do the thing you don't want to. It's motivation that takes it to the next level. Now, you have to understand, as simple as that might sound, guess what? It's not simple because there is a makeup to motivation. It's very intricate. And this is the things that people have to learn to understand, to be able to really begin to say, okay, I understand why I'm struggling with motivation because I didn't realize it was that intimate and that intricate of a process to be able to achieve it. So let's talk about the driving forces. There are internal versus external things that you do have to navigate. You talk about motivation. So internal versus external. Internal is that intrinsic. It's that drive, that rewards, satisfaction, interest from the inside. Whereas when something is external or extrinsic, it's driven by more external factors. So it might be if I accomplish this, if I get an A, then my parents are going to buy me a car. Or if I achieve this goal at work, have to achieve and do this much in a sales job, then I get a bonus. So there's something external. The internal is you might want the reward because you want the bonus. It is the bonus that's driving you. It's an internal factor that can influence how you actually want to do something. Actually, external things such as praise and affirmation can be things that motivate us to do things. Believe it or not, fear can motivate people to do things. So you have to understand the driving force that's internal versus external. Now, what about the idea that motivation very often is goal oriented? Fundamentally, motivation is always going to be tied to some desired outcome that we strive for. And for some people, that can be a goal. Motivation does not exist in a vacuum. There's something that you legitimately try to achieve in the process. These things can also influence your behavior. And most people don't know that. If influence behavior, it's going to dictate your actions, obviously. Motivation will make you decide the action that you take. So if you want that bonus at work, it might be that you have to go work early, work later, go in a day that you're not supposed to work to achieve that goal to get the bonus. Hence, your behavior is being influenced by the motivation for either that internal or external thing that you're trying to achieve. And of course, we all know there's always a psychological impact to this. That motivation can influence your overall well-being. Because if you don't find the balance and how it impacts your mental health, you can become stressed or depressed because you keep trying to achieve something and you're failing. So then it starts to make you question yourself. Do I have the ability? Am I smart enough? Maybe I shouldn't have done this. This is why I don't get the promotions. So there's a lot to understanding how motivation is tied. So many of the decisions that you make, how you feel about yourself. Motivation is not this word that exists in a vacuum. Hopefully you understand that piece. But here's what's more interesting. There are also types of motivation. So I talked a bit about intrinsic, the internal. This arises from enjoyment and satisfaction from activities that we do for ourselves. Sometimes for people, it could be creating art. For some people, it might be making music. For somebody, it might be, just anything that brings you joy and satisfaction can drive you to be motivated to do something. Some people might work hard at work because they like to travel and they need the money to travel. So that motivates them intrinsically. Whereas extrinsic motivation comes from the external factors like rewards or recognition, even avoidance of negative consequences. Have you ever heard a person say something like, I don't understand why they made a big deal while I was late to work. I was only 5 minutes late. And then, but doesn't the policy say that if you clock in or you're late, it's still late? Whereas you have another person who gets it and it'll be like, they get to work early. So they don't have to worry about being late because they don't want the negative consequences that could come with potentially being written up for being late to work. But the person who is late for work and gets written up, for some reason, can't seem to process. You created the negative consequence when you didn't follow the rule. We know how human nature works and how people processes things. I'm going to have to tell you something. We have to get into something called dialectical behavioral therapy that talks about the three ways that your mind works. Because a lot of people, if they understood how your mind works in three dimensions, and you may do one more than the other, maybe would start making better, smarter, more well-balanced decisions because they understand their way of thinking. So there's also, we talked about intrinsic, extrinsic, the things that, those are types, but there's also approach motivation. Approach motivation involves ways that want to get to those positive outcomes, like achieving a goal or receiving a reward. So you put together an approach, you're motivated. So like I said, you may have to do a behavior because it's action oriented that can get you there. Versus other people might do avoidance. They may avoid a negative outcome like punishment or failure. So they'll do something because they're motivated to not deal with it. So believe it or not, motivation is not something that's just one dimensional. It has many pieces that are really important to understand. So we're going to talk a bit about, well, how do I navigate these things? Well, a nugget about how to jumpstart your motivation since we're talking about it. Understand everybody thinks lofty goals. Short-term goals are equally important as long-term goals, not to mention, in many cases, short-term goals are the foundational pieces for larger goals. You have to look at the totality of what you're looking at and say, I want to get to this, but in order to get to this, I have to do this, this, and this. So often breaking things into smaller, more manageable steps in the process can actually help you to achieve that. But what's really interesting, and I always tell people this, that I always say they don't have goals, they didn't have a plan, they don't know where to start, they want something, but they don't have a plan. That's a problem. You cannot have an idea and not have a way to put it into action. But when you try to do everything at once, chances are you're going to fail. Now, I say that, let me give you an example, because I always feel the best way for people to often understand these kind of conversations is I say this. Let's just say you finally sit down and write down some goals. Because remember, we're halfway through the year, which means if you didn't get half the things you said you wanted to do back in January with that resolution thing, well, now's the time to stop and say, I did not achieve those things. Well, did you write them down? Did you give them a time frame to achieve them? Was there an action plan? Probably not. This is where you break things into smaller things. One goal, like let's just say you're like, I want to save money. I don't have a savings account, a rainy day fund. You may say, I'm going to start small. Every paycheck, I'm going to take at least $25 and put it to a savings account and not achieve it. If you started that on January 1, that first month you had $100 if you get paid weekly. If not, then you still had $100. It's just 25 to 50. It depends on how you get paid. But the thing is, you can see the fruits of your labor because by the time you got to June, it was depending upon how your pay was. Let's just say you got paid every week. January, February, March, April, May. You have $500 sitting there that all you had to do was create a simple plan to make it happen. It's a small thing. Now, you can say, I want my rainy day fund to have at least $5,000 in it because I have found when I hit a rough patch, if I would have had that much money, I could have navigated that storm a lot better financially. Okay, granted, it's not the $5,000 that you wanted, but you have something. And then it's the discipline and consistency of not using, touching it, and sticking to the plan. And eventually, let's just say if you can start adding more, you're like, hey, that $25, I didn't really miss it. I'm going to double it. I'm going to put 50 away. It's all about perspective and how you approach things. Okay, so that's motivation in a nutshell. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of where people tend to fall short. Because this is a thing that most people don't consider. Goals versus planning. They cannot be one without the other. Especially, you can't have a goal and not put a plan, and a plan without a goal. It just doesn't make sense. What's that wonderful saying? That you deciding to was only based on the fact that you decided not to plan. And it's the truth, and most people struggle with that. But before we jump into that, let me take a deep breath, let me reboot, let me make sure I'm on the right place. I've been away for a while. I think I'm doing okay. I'll get back into it, but let's take a quick break, talk about some mental health stuff the other side of the break. I'll come back, and we're going to pick up with goal versus planning.
Stepping out of bed. It's easy to take for granted. You work, eat, play, sleep, and get out of bed the next morning. Seems simple. But if you're one of 25 million individuals in the United States living with major depression, sleep isn't always so easy. Neither is navigating your daily life free of guilt or hopelessness, or having the ability to enjoy time out with friends, make simple decisions, enjoy hobbies, or go to work. Major depression is the leading cause of disability across the United States, and without treatment, the frequency and severity of symptoms tend to increase over time. However, there is hope. Major depression is treatable, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Today, there are a variety of treatment options to choose from. The key is to get an evaluation and find a treatment plan that is right for you. Free education, information, and support programs are available. You are not alone. We can help.
You may not realize it, but these words, often used to describe someone with a mental health condition, can be very harmful. In a country where 1 in 5 people are affected by a mental health condition, it's time for all of us to step up and change the conversation. Just because someone's struggle isn't obvious on the outside doesn't mean they aren't hurting on the inside. We need to see the person, not the condition. Join with me, pledge to be stigma-free.
It's okay to think you're in a toxic relationship with the world right now.
It's okay to feel like your world is changing.
It's okay if it's hard to find the words to express how you feel.
It's okay to feel like you just want to become someone else.
It's okay if you're panicking over an inability to control your life right now.
It's okay to have trouble maintaining your normal routine while staying home.
It's okay if you're feeling more cynical than usual.
It's okay if you want to curse more than you usually do.
It's okay to wear your favorite tank top several days in a row.
It's okay to miss your job.
It's okay to just stay quiet.
It's okay to be depressed.
It's okay to talk to your cats like they understand what you're saying.
It's okay not to feel the most fabulous right now.
It's okay.
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 Welcome back to M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. The language of success. This is episode 64 that we are kind of breaking down some key things to understand what goes into success, understanding more the words. Like you can't just say things like ambition and willpower and motivation and not understand what it legitimately means. You got to get to the core of these things to understand them, to be able to make them truly actionable. Hopefully, we got some good insight about mental health from a commercial break. And it is okay to not be okay. but I want to do something a little bit more. I want to challenge people on this. If you're not okay, say it. Tell somebody. And here's one that's even bigger than that. If you see somebody you know and they don't seem okay, sometimes you're waiting for somebody to ask, are you okay? You good? You just don't seem like yourself lately. I could be wrong, but at least I want to check in, because if you're not good, I'm here for you. It's sometimes something that simple that can change somebody's life. Someone just asking if they're okay. Are you good? However you communicate, you do. All right. So back to, I said on the side of this side of the break, we're going to talk about the big elephant in the room to me, which is goal versus planning. Now, I think it's interesting that a lot of people think they legitimately know what a goal is, but do they really know? And if they do know, have they actually put the thought into what the goal is and why it exists? By the way, that's the tie-in at the back end of the podcast. Passion versus purpose. And is that a conversation that I have with people in therapy all the time? Because it does matter if you don't get those two things. Because to be honest, without those two things, the goal planning is way more complicated. But I decided to put that on the back end to make that the wrap-up conversation, because that's what people can start with all the other things that they're struggling with. So what's a goal? You know, it seems like, oh, we all know what a goal is. A goal is, isn't it being motivated? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. It requires that, but it's more than just being motivated to get something done. What is that you're trying to get done? So when we talk about what is a goal, clearly the simplest way to say this is that a goal, for what it's worth, is a desired outcome. Let's do the Webster thing. A goal. A goal represents what you want to achieve versus, so it's the end result of a destination you're aiming for. So the goal could be something that could happen in 3 days. The goal could be something that could happen in 60. It could happen in a year. See, that's the planning piece. We're going to get into that in a minute. But the goal is, what is it that you want to achieve? What are you trying to get to? What is the outcome? And a lot of times you have to be very clear. I often find when I ask people, what's your goal with this? I can ask people, first sessions in therapy. So what's your goal for coming to therapy? And most people go, I want to be happy. Whoa, what's that mean? Because being happy, that right there in itself is a very complex thing to process. I said, well, we gotta tear this apart more, because that's a very big, long-term maybe goal. We got to figure out why you're not happy. So one of the things I do with people when they come into therapy, I actually give them a goal worksheet to go home and work on if they didn't come with knowing specifically what they like the outcomes to be of therapy. It isn't about coming in every week and just randomly talking. We should be achieving something that makes sure you're getting somewhere. So I said, well, this is homework, but it's not homework that's hard. It's like, I want us to have a roadmap that we're going to use to make sure that what you came here for, you get. Or maybe we'll discover some things else along the way, but at least we got to have a plan. So it's something that you want to achieve. It's an end result, an outcome, and you need to be really clear about what that is. So the relationship between a goal and a plan, look at it this way. And it's important to truly actually understand the difference, is that a goal is where you want to get to, right? You got to know the difference. A plan is the means of how you're going to get to the goal. This is why you can't have one without the other. So when someone was like, well, I wanted to get a car. And my question is, well, did you have the money to buy the car? Well, no. Well, how are you going to get the car? It's just, I want to get one. Okay. But do you put something in place? Do you know what your budget is? Or do you make enough money that can achieve that for you? It's that lack of the planning part, but always seems to get people stuck, because they just want something without understanding how they're going to get to it. The goal, what? It's the outcome, but the plan is how you actually get there. And that place is so key. So if we gave goal that much attention and talking about definition, then we got to give the same attention to the plan. The plan outlines the how. So remember, the goal is the what. The plan is the how you reach that goal. It includes specific steps, tasks, resources, and deadlines needed to achieve the desired outcome. Let me say this again. It includes specific steps, which could be step 1, do this. I need this resource to achieve it. So I want a car. Am I working? No. I am working, but I don't make enough. Okay, so resources. Well, one better. Goals to get a car, but what's your budget? Sometimes you have goals should be realistic. They should be smart. Smart goals. Where don't wish for something you can't afford. Start small and figure out, well, this is my starting point, not my ending point. So this is what I could afford based on what I make. Budget, right? So resources. Task might be, okay, I may have to plan this out, and I may have to work overtime and save this much money for the next 6 months to be able to get this. Do I want to finance a car versus just buying a car straight out cash and not having that responsibility? See, these are all things that have to go into the planning, understanding, and give yourself a deadline. Because if we work without deadlines, this is often why people don't achieve things. If you leave it open-ended, like I want a car, and you just keep working, but you're not saving money, you're not working the plan, a year could go by and you still don't have the car. But if you say, hey, in 6 months, I need to have this much money saved. And in 6 months, you check in with yourself. And you said, you know what? I didn't hit it. Why? Because you know what? I was spending money. I didn't work the overtime I said. Another financial issue came up that took me away. You got to assess it and then make adjustments. That's something else that should be in the plan. Does it require adjustments? It always requires revision and evaluation. That's the plan to make it actionable. So just like goal got some attention, understanding the plan itself is where people often fail not to achieve the things that you're trying to get. So the plan is so important. I'll say it again. Failure to plan is planning to fail. And I know it's very, very cliche. It really, really is. But if you think about it, the essence of that saying is legitimate. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to achieve it, which means you're going to fail. Whenever you fail something, I always tell failure is just an opportunity to do better. The question is, what do you do with your failure? And if you go back and say, like, real talk, I didn't have a plan, or the plan I had, I really didn't work it the way I was supposed to. So hence, can I really be mad at somebody else because I didn't get it done? I didn't get it done because I didn't stick to what I said. Remember early in the podcast, I said consistency is one of the biggest things to be successful, and discipline. When you put those things in front of you, like, I must commit to this. I have to be disciplined. I got to push myself. It goes that way. So just remember, you got to have the plan. So I said I was going to save the best for last because I think it's so important. It is so important. And this is a type of conversation that happens in therapy with so many people. When they feel stuck, remember I said earlier in my little opening, are you feeling stuck? It's because a lot of people come into therapy like, I just don't get it. I just don't know what I'm doing. I feel lost. And sometimes that comes from a lot of different life events. Remember, through the lifespan, we're going to be at different junctures. And this is why having a really salient conversation about passion and purpose is so important, because there's such a big part of understanding the roadmap. It's what helps you to figure out what the goal is and how to make the plan. So one of the things I always ask people straight out in therapy, okay, what's your passion versus what's your purpose? It is paramount that you know the difference, because they are not the same. They are very intertwined. They definitely have this connection that's really important to understand. And at different points of life, they look differently. So when I say the lifespan, it's because within psychology, we look at the individual, or what we call over their lifespan. So when you are a child, there's like, infancy, then it goes into like early adolescence, and then there's young adulthood, and there's adulthood, and there's late adulthood. And within each of those stages, which are usually defined by ages, legitimately, you're not going to want the same things or need the same things or feel the same way, because our life is shaped by our experiences. Yes, those very early experiences in our childhood definitely impact the way that we may move as adults. And that's one of the things, it may seem like so cliche to process your childhood. Sometimes when you start processing your childhood, you come to understand, I didn't pick that up before. And now I can see why I struggle with this relationships, or I'm not good with money. There's a lot there. Think about it. If no one ever taught you about money, are you going to necessarily be good about it unless you take that big step as an adult and educate yourself? If no one really taught you much about emotions, how to process things, or when you didn't do well, opposed to making you feel bad. They said, hey, it's okay. We all make mistakes, but you can do better next time. I can help you. It's those little things in parenting that makes a difference in the kind of adult that we become. Teaching a child compassion, giving them space to make a mistake and to learn from it, learning how to properly communicate their emotions. Now, mind you, nobody goes into it because there is no book or instruction manual about parenting. Though I think by now, real talk, there are some out there that can give you some really what I feel important tips about think of it differently. But I always say, think about what you didn't get and what you would have liked. That doesn't mean your child is you, but it is something you felt that could have made you more prepared for the world. And are you giving that to your child? Are you being better in relationships based on what you understand? But passion and purpose eludes people all the time. So I start out with the one that people experience more in life. What's your passion? What's your passion? Passion, by definition, is a strong feeling of enthusiasm or interest. And what's interesting on the flip side, purpose is a bit different. It's a deeper sense of meaning or direction in life. So passion can be a driving force for purpose, depending on where you're at in your life. But purpose becomes the framework of how that passion actually comes to be. So often people who have purpose are going to make an impact beyond themselves. So if passion is a strong enthusiasm of interest in something, which means we could, let's say if we had to describe it, we had to give passion personality, it's personal. But the thing about passion that most people don't understand, and this is really important, is passion can be fleeting and can be driven by enjoyment of pleasure. So some people will say, I used to really enjoy gaming and now I'm just not into it. And I was like, well, what's different about your life now? They're like, well, I got a job and my time is limited, but I just don't enjoy it the same way. That's okay, because a passion isn't always something that's going to ride out with you the whole time. And most people don't know, as you move to the lifespan, which you might have, would you like at 15? Do you like it 30? No. At 30, you don't maybe want the same thing at 50. It's just we have different needs. Life shapes us in a way that we then kind of pour ourselves or desire things differently. What makes purpose different? Because it's a deeper sense of meaning and direction in life that goes beyond personal enjoyment. So with purpose, we're often looking outside of ourselves to do something for others, as altruistic. Whereas passion is usually more unique to us. It doesn't mean others can't benefit from it, but we're really often thinking about ourselves. So this is why people may volunteer all the time. This is why people may donate to a certain charity. For instance, some people might decide, I want to make a difference in a child's life. So they may be fostered because they feel that they have something to offer that they can give. So you have to understand what makes them different, not get hung up if you feel like you don't have them. So think about the drivers, as we just talked about. Passion is often personal, can be fleeting, is driven by enjoyment, pleasure, and that's okay. But on the flip side, when we talk about purpose, the driver with purpose it's more enduring, it's altruistic. It often involves contributing to something larger outside of ourselves. You must separate those two things and do not confuse them. And life early on, let's be honest, in our earlier life, 20s to 30s, we may be more all about passion because we're young, we're learning, life is in front of us. We're learning more about ourselves and the world. And then you may get married and have kids, and your purpose may align to being a better parent. You got to look at where you're at in life and what are the wants and the needs. If you can't seem to find where your passion is or where your purpose is, it's okay to tell yourself, guess what? I'm pretty sure they're different for a reason now because I'm a different person than I was 5 years ago. Well, what is the new or evolve you? What does this evolve you want for passion and purpose? The key differences that I always tell people to pay attention to. It's like beating a horse, but it's important. There's duration, focus, and quantity when you talk about passion versus purpose. The focus is, remember, passion's about personal enjoyment, while purpose is about impact. Distinguish that. Don't get upset if you can't figure out what your purpose is, because maybe you're still looking for your passion. 2, if you think about quantity, you can have multiple passions. You might like to go traveling. You may like to do pottery. You may be passionate about working at a shelter, and that's great. Whereas eventually in life, purpose will align itself down to usually one thing. It becomes very, very simple. A lot of people kind of struggle with the idea that something is so simple that way. And duration. Purpose tends to be longer. Once you establish it, you know what it is that you really want to pour yourself into, then you do so. Whereas passion may be fleeting. What's happening today may not happen tomorrow. You kind of say passion sometimes can be a little like fashion. And I know people kind of struggle with that. Like, really? It could be a little fashion? Yeah. But it's okay to ask yourself, what's my passion? Because here's something I found as an actual, I think it's a really good way to kind of think about how you actually do this. So if you think about it this way, passion, mission. This could have been passion, purpose. Because when you figure out your passion, it often puts you on a mission that can lead you to purpose. And that part can be amazing within itself. So don't get overwhelmed if you don't have the answers. It's about discovery, because these things are not easy to always come upon. As we evolve and we mature, we have to be open to that. So be flexible. Don't think that everything in life is non-negotiable when it comes to your emotions and feelings and your wants and needs, because they're not. Be excited about what motivates you, and let that motivation be that thing that maybe gets you to the ambition that you think has been eluding you. Remember I said about ambition earlier. Motivation is one thing. We can all be motivated. But ambition is a thing that makes somebody the leader of the pack. It's the cream that rises to the top. They do more. They push harder. And you don't have to be that person. Just because you're not being less described as being ambitious doesn't mean you're not a person who's not successful. Understand this: the best thing ever. I think it was saved by I think it was Theodore Roosevelt. It was one of the older presidents. Maybe wrong, maybe Eisenhower. I'm confusing, but I think it was Roosevelt. He said that comparison is the thief of joy, and that's one of the things I have to stop in therapy about all the time. Stop comparing yourself to other people. They're not you. They don't have your narratives, your stories, your experiences. And though you could have something in common with someone, it does not mean that you are the same. And people often make that mistake. That, oh, we have this in common and we had that experience. Okay, you shared something, but you are still two different people, because maybe the path that got you there is not the same. But people make the mistake of always going to align themselves with someone because they share something in common. And that is a very quick way to self-sabotage you, because you're working so hard to compare yourself to someone else when you're not the same. Hence, this is the kind of work that you actually do in therapy. So, everyone, thank you for listening to this episode of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. I know it's been a long time coming. This was the Language of Success, episode 64. Long time for me to actually get here, but I appreciate everybody for tuning in, whether it's live or whether you're going to pick this up and you're going to listen to it later, which either way, just make sure it's time for you. You create that space, paper, pen, get your favorite beverage, and just sit back, relax, and listen. If I say something that really sparks something, that's good. Because the podcast is here to help you to identify your ambition, harness that motivation, and to help you acquire the success and satisfaction that you seek in every every area of your life, whether it be emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, socially, professionally. This is what M.A.Y.A is all about. So remember, you can listen to episodes of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. Probably the easiest way to get all things M.A.Y.A is just to go to M.A.YA-speaks.com, because you can then click on the podcast page and it'll take you to all the platforms. Because everybody has their kind of platform of choice. As I said, you can find me on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, Spotify. If it's your platform, probably there. Just search M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. And there's lots of other episodes that you just might want to dive into and get more things out of it. Of course, I always ask people to subscribe and share my YouTube page. It's M.A.Y.A Speaks to You. So if you happen to be a YouTuber, all you have to do is just go there, and you can go ahead and you can, listen to and subscribe and do that good stuff. Share. If you think you got somebody who you might say, you know what, they don't want to go to therapy, but they might get something from this. By the way, this is not here because I'm here to tell you what to do. I'm here to encourage you to want to be the best version of you. I'm not here to give you advice. I'm not your therapist. If that's the case, get on my link, click and make an appointment and come and see me. This is purely something to help people enrich their lives. I am not an expert for you because I don't know you. So don't go and say, M.A.Y.A said. No, M.A.Y.A was talking about something that piqued my interest. Maybe it's worth me exploring in deeper detail. So get to some past episodes, and there's some good ones in there that most people have said, I actually just went back to the beginning of your podcast and started listening to them and really got good information that really made me kind of rethink how I was doing things. I'm like, I can kind of be your self-help kind of podcast, so to speak, give you some ideas, and then you can do the research and try some of those things and go from there. But subscribe to the YouTube page. Remember, everyone, I said this June is Men's Health Month. And next week is International Men's Health Month week. So fellas, take care of yourself. Put the effort in. Do those things that are important for you. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate everyone's time. I've been away for a while, so I know I've got to get my traction back and get kind of everybody, back on page. But I do appreciate everyone being here. Hopefully you got something from it. Remember, if something popped up in your mind, you got a question, I always encourage people to go to M.A.YA-speaks.com, send a message through, and usually maybe once a month or 2 months, I'll take some of those questions and actually just do a podcast that's nothing but about questions I've gotten, of course, anonymously. It's called a mailbag podcast. And we just kind of, some of the things that people bring up, like you said this, could you talk about this more in episode? You said this, and I kind of want more clarity, or kind of pop this thought. Great with that kind of exchange, because often I find if one person has thought it, somebody else has probably thought it as well. With that being said, everyone, for this episode, can't promise I'll be back next week because I'm easing my way back into this, but I will definitely be back in 2 weeks, which will be June 21st, for a second episode coming into this season. And after that, eventually I'll get back into my rhythm of one podcast a week, but I got to work my way into it because I've been gone for a while. But either way, remember, your present becomes your past and your future is no more. So make the most of every day. Be well, stay safe, and be amazing.
Whether you're on the go or listening on your cell phone, tablet, or laptop, you can find the show in the iTunes, Google, and iHeartRadio platforms.
With all due respect, I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just search M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, and get ready to be inspired and motivated to harness your ambition.